Hey guys, just come to you real quick. Just had a local sale off of the OfferUp app. It was that air scrubber that I picked up on the Highway 70 yard sale. And I featured it in a couple of my videos, which I've got so many, it's hard to find them. Anyway, I'm real proud of myself because normally I'm the kind of guy, I'm almost fanatical about wanting to get the highest penny. I mean, the absolute most for the stuff I get. I think Bearded Picker talks about being proud of your stuff. I'm usually pretty proud of my stuff. But I've gotten a lot better at, instead of, especially on a big item like that, listing it on eBay, waiting, trying to figure out how to ship it, box it up, all that kind of stuff, and then waiting 30 days after they get it to be able to touch that money. Decided instead of getting $400 to $600 for it, I take the quick flip and sell it locally for $300 cash. Now it's back in my pocket and ready for me to go do some yard selling, some estate selling, and buy some more treasures. Now that that's been said, I'm about to show you some of the really cool finds, some of the stuff that I am proud of. I love unique things, especially old. I love very rare things, and they come in all kinds of sizes and shapes. So those things I tend to hold on to until I can get the top value. The main reason is I want to make sure they're being passed on to somebody else who's going to enjoy them as much as I have. And while I'm sitting here, just want to show you what I've been doing the past couple of days. Look, the office is cleaned up. Well, as much as it's going to be cleaned up, it's workable anyway. So I'll show you those, all that stuff. Here you go. Okay, let's start off here. This is a 1920s negative enlarger. Everything works on it. It plugs it in. This is a very, very cool piece. The bellows are in excellent shape. Has a little bit of cracking on some of the corners, but for this being this old, it's just amazing that the bellows are that solid. The way this worked is these wheels adjust up and down, and then you can minor adjust with that, and then you set your media down there, and then these actually are on all sides. They move in and out, and it actually crops it. You put your glass slide, which I have. Whoop, that doesn't go with it. Your glass negative, which I have one right here that's from that era of a nice church. You slide it in this little slot, turn the lamp on, and you enlarge. I actually got this at a Goodwill auction, Goodwill online. Nobody bid on it. I got it for, I believe it's like between $4 and $8. It's a heavy piece. This is something I will sell locally. It's not worth a whole lot. In this condition, probably about $400. For something that old and that cool, though, I would have expected it to be a little bit more. This is something I haven't finished researching. I know it's a portable medical device. I haven't found anything like it, so this may be very, very rare. It's from the early 1900s, late 1800s, and what happens is you can adjust, you can hold that right there, and then you stick your fingers through like it's a hypodermic, and you push it. Oh, let me loosen it up a little bit more. And then you push it. Oh, going the wrong way. All right. And then you push it, and this little scalpel comes out. So I'm thinking this is for some kind of a biopsy. I'm not sure. I think I paid probably $1 for this, and I've had it for a little bit. I'm going to finish researching it so that I know exactly what it is, so I can enjoy it really good before I pass it on. There's a lot of medical collectors for surgical equipment and things like this, so it shouldn't have any problems selling. This is a grandfather clock, and I don't usually pick up grandfather clocks. The market on grandfather clocks has gone the way of pianos. You can almost get them for next to nothing if you will move them out of the people's houses. But this is a particular one is from 1860. It's a St. Jude brand, or Jean brand. And the name of this model was R. Jean Tet. It's got really cool ornamentation on it. It's all plated or brass. Really, really nice wood. It works. I met a guy, actually met a really cool couple, and I'm hoping to interview them on my channel. Very interesting people. Anyway, he actually has dealt in grandfather clocks internationally for 40 years. He sells to people who sell. You actually have to have an order of $500,000 and a sales tax number to walk into any one of his warehouses. He told me that he has never seen, he's seen plenty of these clocks, but he's never seen one like this. And after doing research, I haven't found one. I believe this may be the only one in existence. It may be the only one like it made. And the reason why, these French Mobiers, usually all through here is all glass. So that you can see this really beautiful pendulum back there. But this particular one has a trap door, and the key is hanging on it, so I can make sure that that doesn't fall. And that comes out, and then you can see the pendulum. Isn't that beautiful? What they actually did is they would hammer these plates, and it looks like it's brass, I believe. Thin plates, and then they would wrap them around the thin steel pendulums. And with this one, it's actually thinner than the rest of them, and it's more narrow. And so the pendulum has to be smaller. Instead of making a separate plate for that, they actually took this one and just wrapped the excess around the pendulum. So there's, you won't be able to see it, but there's it's actually, when you take the pendulum out and look at the back of it, it actually looks like crap. It looks like it was really rigged. So I don't know the story of this. I don't know if it was an accident that they made one like this, or if it was going to be a prototype and they didn't want to invest the money into making the separate hammered sheets. They just used what they had from the other pieces. But I paid up for this a little bit. I paid $700 for it, actually. I paid $800 with some stuff. I was at an estate sale company, good friends of mine, and I was just hanging out, something to do. I'd already spent quite a bit of money with them earlier in the week. So it was Saturday. It was late. They were closing up. They had this for $3,000. And I thought it was just too cool to let it get scrapped or whatever. I am asking $2,000 on this. The gentleman I spoke of, he said that was an incredible price for it. And if it is one of a kind, especially if it's a prototype by this well-known, real sought-after company, manufacturer, then it could be worth quite a bit more. But I gotta sell it. Too big to keep in here. Here we have an Italian sofa that was sold by a company called Casina, which only sells high-end furniture. It was designed by Vico Magistretti. Now, Vico Magistretti was a famous furniture designer back in the 80s. He actually got world acclaim for this particular design. He was in all kinds of periodicals. But before that, he was an internationally famous architect. after World War II, he helped design quite a few buildings, including a church in Milan. There is a museum that in Milan that only has his items, is all about him. He has items in quite a few museums here in the United States. Now, when I first got this, I got it from a estate sale company, and their client told them that this was a prototype. If it actually had been a prototype, it would have been a life-changing event. It would have been worth millions and millions of dollars. As it turns out, it's not. It's a production piece. So it's worth, in perfect condition, about $10,000. In this condition, I'm figuring between $3,000 and $5,000. Now you can see some of the design of this is really, really cool. The backs actually adjust up and down so that you can compensate for the people sitting on it. And it's a little difficult, but you'd want to be a little bit stiff. The cool thing is the sides actually pull in, and the base becomes kind of like a coffee table. So this is a very, very cool find. I actually went to the estate sale company, and I was hanging out, as I often do with these guys, and I was sitting on this couch, and I was talking to the owner, the husband, and I was sitting on this sofa, and I was admiring how comfortable it was as I was talking. He started telling me about it being a prototype and about different things like that. They had $400 on it. I went home. It took me 2 hours to research this, and this is, again, where I just happened to come across an image that led me to finding out what it is. And I came back the next day, and I got it for $225. So I've got it listed right now for $3,000. I should be able to sell it for that. This is a silver plate over copper cruet stand by Rogers & Sons, which was one of the first companies to start doing that process. It's from about 1830. If you're not familiar what cruet stands are, they basically hold stuff for your table, for your salad. You got oil and vinegar dispensers. You've got salt and pepper dispensers. These are usually like for jellies or mustard jars. So anyway, these used to be very, very valuable. Cruet stands, that they come in all shapes and sizes, and ones that you paid $250 or $300 for about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, they are now worth about $40. This particular one, though, is a collectible. This was their third pattern, and this is a company that was made a lot of items between between the early 1800s and I believe around 1950. So a very well-known company. There are a lot of Rogers and different things, but this is Rogers & Sons. They're not affiliated with those others. Anyway, I have never, ever found this particular one or anyone that actually works like this or looks anywhere close to this. So the fact that it's the third pattern, the first pattern is actually one of those fancy schmancy coffee tipping urn things. It's in a museum. The second one wound up on eBay a few years after I bought this one, and I was an idiot for not buying it. It was just a cigarette box, but it was their second pattern. And so it's got historic value in that. Value is only by what somebody will pay for something, though. So I haven't figured out a price on this. I will eventually sell it if I don't donate it to a museum. So anyway, this is the only one that I have found. These jars, only a couple of them are original. You can see they've got, can you see that's got really cool patterns on it? If I can get the camera to focus on that. Anyway, they're all etched. A couple of these, I believe these two are the only ones that were original with it. I can't remember if the salt and pepper shaker was or not. I actually had to collect these. It took me a while. They are the same patterns, but they're not originally from this particular one. The spoon is, I believe, from the 1920s, 1930s, but it is not original with this either. So, one of the things that makes this unique is this process here. This actually, let's see if I can do it without breaking anything. You have to line up the little things on it exactly perfect, And then this whole thing lifts out. Now, I'm not sure if they originally filled this with ice or what, or if it was just a fancy schmancy ornamental. It is, well, it's not weighted. This is all, like I said, it's copper with silver plate. And it was one of my very cool finds. So I'm saving the best to last, at least in my opinion. This is my most cherished find, my favorite find, even before I was a reseller. I found this when I was just collecting stuff, which led to being a reseller. This is an eagle. I did some damage to this, and I'll get to that in a minute. It broke my heart, but I don't know if you can see it, but down here at the bottom, it says Sesquicentennial of the Constitution, and it's got 1787 and 1937. It's made of cast, but I believe it was bronze plated. You can see some of the patina from the bronze plating right there. It took me 2 years to research this to figure out what it was. I got it from the same estate sales company that I bought the Cruet stand from. There's a funny story. The owner of the estate sale company just got back from an Australian vacation, and he was majorly hungover and jet lagged. And he told me, he said, "Phil, if you find something you like, don't worry about the price. Bring it to me because I'll probably give it to you." And so I've actually paid $15 for this. I didn't actually know what Sesquicentennial meant. And then somebody did tell me that that was the 150th year of the Constitution. That's not the signing, but it was the drawing up of the Constitution. So anyway, like I said, it took me 2 years solid before I got any kind of lead on this to figure out what it actually was. And the story is, in 1937, a congressional commission was put together to plan the celebration, which was 3 years. It was a national celebration of the Sesquicentennial of the Constitution. This was headed up by, I can't remember if he was a congressman. I guess he was a congressman. Bloom, Saul Bloom, S-O-L Bloom. And the way I actually came across this was that I found that out, and then that led me to doing Google image search. One day I'll probably do a video on how to do deep research. But anyway, came across this picture, and the story behind the picture was there was a guy, this was during the Depression, there was a guy who was out of work. He was an iron worker, and he sent a letter to Saul, saying that he could recite the whole Constitution from memory. Well, Saul wrote him back and told him if he could do that, that they would give him a job there in Washington. So this was a picture in Saul Bloom's office of this guy actually reciting it. And just over Saul's shoulder, I saw something that looked familiar, and it was this eagle, except it was very, very shiny. And so from there, that was 2 years to find that, just that. So that led me to find out that that one of the things that Saul commissioned for the celebration is he commissioned, I can't remember if they were a third scale or a half scale, exact duplications of the Constitutional Shrine. Now, this is the original one. You can Google it and get the history of the Constitutional Shrine. But this one, it's someplace. It would be really cool to find it. But they replaced that in World War II when they moved it. World War II or World War I. Anyway, back to the story. So he had these commissioned. There was 2 eagles. It was this big giant marble. It looked like a shrine. Well, it was a shrine. A big white marble shrine, and it had the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and I believe a couple of other documents under glass, like they are, gas filled so that they don't degrade. And then on each side had one of these eagles. and they were made of brass. But the duplication obviously wasn't. So what he did is he had these commissioned to be made up. He sold them to libraries and schools around the country. But what would happen would be in each township, it would be the businessman, the big wealthy family that owned the department store, or what have you, the big landowner. And what they would do is they would buy them and they would donate them to these libraries and these schools, and there was a big old to-do about it and things like that. So I tracked down a couple of these schools and a library that it was documented that they actually received this. They had absolutely no record of the fact of anything having to do with that. So I don't know this for a fact, but this may be the only one in existence. Now, when I got it, it looked like it had gray lead paint just splashed over, like someone just threw it over the front of it. And I wanted to bring it back when I found out that it could have been brass plated. I wanted to get rid of the paint, and I actually watched a video on YouTube that if you stick the metal in boiling water, the paint will dissolve. Well, unfortunately, within less than a second, it did dissolve, but it also started dissolving the pot metal that was underneath. I'll show a picture of what this looked like. That totally broke my heart. But as I've said before, and I'll say many times again, one of my greatest passions is unique old items, especially if they have historic value. And this may be the only one in existence. The reason for the paint, I believe, was this was just before World War II. World War II, the government, as most of you know, the government collected the precious metals, brass, copper, and so on, for ammunition. And so I believe that probably what happened was somebody thought this was actually solid brass, and so they slapped paint on it so they could sneak it home, and I could find it one day. And again, this is not for sale for any amount of money. It is one of my favorite items. Well, that's it for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And always remember, no matter what tune that life plays you, always find your groove. Bye now.